The track of Imelda may have changed, but we're not out of the woods. Areas in the western Atlantic, including the Bahamas, parts of the southeast, and even Bermuda are likely to be impacted by this storm over the upcoming work week. I'll show you just who's most likely to be impacted and when as Imelda continues to strengthen and head to the north. Welcome into the channel, friends. Jason here with you on this Monday morning as we start another work week and close out another month. Folks, it is the end of September and the tropics have come to life as they often do this time of year, and we have two storms currently swirling around out here. We're going to take a look at both of those, see where they're likely to go and see who's likely to be impacted. Some areas of the southeast are already experiencing some effects of Imelda with a tropical moisture feed making it into the southeast. The forecast has changed drastically, though, from a couple of days ago when it looked like there was a consensus building for a big inland threat with this storm, including flooding and strong winds, and that has rapidly changed as Imelda took a lot longer to get together, and some of the foreign models have won the day on this one. The GFS unfortunately has taken it on the chin. Yes, yet again, it ought to change its tagline to bust or bust, because most of the time the GFS tends to bust with just about everything that comes its way. The European generally does pretty well, but it got kicked in the seat on this one as well. The AI did pretty well. The icon is the clear winner as it never, ever, ever showed a landfall, and that looks exactly like what is going to happen at this point with Imelda. So again, welcome in, folks. Thanks for being here today. We're going to take a look at the tropics, and I'm going to have your work week forecast coming up. We'll have a weather IQ, and we'll wrap things up with space weather too. But here you can clearly see what's going on out here in the Atlantic. There is Imelda looking a lot better today, a lot more of a curvy look, sort of a comma, shrimp, whatever you want to call that, but we're seeing much better organization here as it moves to the north. There is Humberto slowly moving to the west and losing some of its punch as it does so. Another wave working through the Atlantic, and then a couple of more tropical waves coming off of Africa out here in the MDR. Just about it. What's going on out here so far, folks. Nothing else happening in the Atlantic. There's a close-up of Imelda, and you can actually see this thing really starting to take on that classic tropical storm look with that cyclonic-looking curvature to it. And you can see the swirl of the low-level clouds underneath the big bright clouds that are going way up into the atmosphere. So it is getting its act together, expected to head on up into hurricane status here before too long, but that is after it turns on out to sea. This is the official forecast track, so now it is forecast to go straight north. Eventually, as we get on into Tuesday afternoon, turn over here toward, turn to the right and get on out into the Atlantic and strengthen as it does so, become a hurricane as it heads straight toward Bermuda. Bermuda, you're directly in the path of this hurricane, so you really need to be paying attention to the forecast over the next couple of days. The Bahamas, still hurricane or tropical storm rather. Warnings up for you all. Seeing some wind down here, of course, heavy rain as well. And you can expect those conditions to continue for the next 12 to 24 hours or so down here before things settle down a little bit. You'll still have some wave action, but this will begin to pull away over the course of the day and get out of your hair by the end of the evening hours today, okay? Here is the strength as we go on over the next 48 hours. Most of the guidance takes this into Category 1 strength here. So we're going to see some strengthening as we have warm waters in the path of the storm, and the shear is definitely present, but it is not overwhelming to the point where it can't strengthen at least a little bit. But we're looking at most of the convergence around a Category 1 storm, and so that will take place over the next couple of days. Here are your warnings, tropical storm warnings up today. Here in the Bahamas, tropical storm watch that was in effect for the Space Coast of Florida and up and down the east coast here has been discontinued as the system looks to remain just enough offshore to keep the heavy rain and the wind away from you all. Thank goodness. Here are the probabilities, 100% probabilities down here in the Bahamas for tropical storm sustained, tropical storm force winds. Just a 5 to 10% chance, maybe close to 20% of making it in here. Toward, well, this is close to 10%, actually. That's what that first hash is. So 10% chance of tropical storm force winds here along the coast of Florida. Could see a gust or two out there, but really not looking at anything all that impressive from a wind standpoint. Rip currents today up and down the east coast. Moderate chance to high chance all the way down toward Florida. Moderate chance here over in Puerto Rico tomorrow. Same story, except more rip currents farther up the coast in terms of a risk. So we have a high chance of rip currents, and so got to be paying attention to the water and those flags along the coast. Take those alerts seriously out there. Try to stay out of the water. I know some people like to surf, folks, but let's try to stay out of the water if we can and avoid putting emergency crews at risk and avoid putting your own life at risk. It's too precious to get out here and waste it on something that is a pleasurable activity that turns deadly, folks. Okay, so here is the wind gust map as we go through the day today into this evening. You can see some of those gusts making it right along the coast. These would be 30-mile-per-hour gusts, potentially making it along the Florida coast, but not too much inland, just some gusts into the 20s, potentially as we go through the afternoon and evening. Wake up tomorrow morning. Well offshore, you're going to see plenty of wind, but right along the coast, gusts into the 20s, and just inland is from there as well. So nothing too bad from a wind standpoint from this storm. Wave action, though, looks to really crank things up out here in the Atlantic as we go on through the day today into this evening. Start to see those 10-foot wave heights making it very close to the shore. Right out here around Humberto, we're looking at wave heights around 40 feet or so. It's still a very, very strong storm, folks. And so nobody should be out here, but if you are, just know that you're going to experience some big waves. And as we go on out through Tuesday and then into Wednesday, boy, the Atlantic just gets all churned up yet again. We saw this with Aaron. Going to be lots of wave action coming into the coast, going to see lots of coastal erosion. I don't expect a lot of inland flooding or anything like that, but certainly are going to see more coastal erosion as this wave action chops up the Atlantic over the course of the entire week. By the time we get into the weekend, things start to settle down just a little bit. And if you're keeping score at home, here is Hurricane Humberto. Max sustained winds at 130 miles per hour. So very, very strong storm remains to be the case indeed. It will weaken as it moves on off to the north and eventually out. It's going to curve right around Bermuda and make its way to the northeast, and eventually by the end of the week it should become a post-tropical cyclone as it gets into the cooler waters of the North Atlantic. That is your tropical update, folks. That's the timing on what you should expect. Most of us inland in terms of South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia are seeing rain today as a result of the tropical moisture feed being pulled in. We're going to take a look at how much rain we can expect and who's seeing that rain coming right up. But first, we're going to test your weather IQ with today's IQ question. Folks, as you've already seen, we're coming into the time of year where the forecast can change rapidly. And so make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. Stay tuned for the latest updates as things change as we deal with tropical activities, severe weather events as we enter our second severe season. And winter is coming up, and we all know how fickle the forecast can be. So I'll keep you updated here. Like this content if you like it, and make sure you put a comment in the comment section. Let me know where you're commenting from. And certainly if you have any questions, most importantly, prayer requests, anything I can pray about, please put it in the comments section, folks. I want to lift you up, and I do pray for you every day. And with that, folks, we're going to take a look at today's weather IQ question. It's about raindrops. I know a lot of you haven't seen raindrops in a long time, so you may have forgotten what they look like, but they do fall out of the sky occasionally. And when they do, we want to know what speed they fall at. And that's today's question. What is the speed at which the average raindrop falls? Approximately 14 miles per hour, 10 miles per hour, 26 miles per hour, or warp 2. All right, you might be able to eliminate at least one of those answers, but let me know what you think. Put it in the comment section if you want to guess or if you know it. Otherwise, I will tell it to you at the end of the show. Right now, we're going to look at the weather for the upcoming week across the U.S. I'm going to start you off with a vapor loop today. I always show this when there's something interesting to show, and there is something interesting to show today. We've got a hurricane spinning here off the coast. You can see that showing up very well. And we've got another tropical system right next to it. That's, of course, Imelda. Humberto's out here to the right, but there is Imelda, and tropical moisture is just streaming up in to the Carolinas and parts of the mid-Atlantic. We've got a high pressure system. You can't see it on this map, but it's sitting up here, and it is funneling down cooler and drier air east of the Appalachians. This is like a cold air damming situation in the wintertime where you get cold air at the surface and then warmer, moisture air riding over top of that. And that's what we've got now. And that provides lift. It provides clouds, and rain. And we're seeing rain from South Hill, Virginia, all the way through the Piedmont of North Carolina, Raleigh, Burlington, down to Fayetteville, parts of South Carolina, Myrtle Beach, Loris, and down into Charleston. You're seeing some rain this morning, and we'll look at that here in just a minute. But that's what's going on. And you've got another upper level system out to the west that is opening up. It's a trough out here, but it is opening up. It was a closed low, and then a big front kind of pushing onto the coast here into the west and bringing you all some clouds and rain out here, and just tropical moisture in the monsoonal flow flowing up into the Four Corners region and out here into the lee of the Rockies. We're going to see some rain this afternoon, but that was pretty interesting vapor loop. We're looking at that and watching what's going on there. Taking a look at the alerts map, very, very clean. Not much going on at all except for some wind advisories and a couple of areas of air quality up here in the northwest for wildfire smoke. A lot of red colors out here in the Atlantic for marine warnings and hurricane warnings. Better stay out of the Atlantic tropical storm force wind warnings out here as well. So you got to stay out of the waters if you're boating. Just put the boat in the dock today, folks, and just stay out of the water. That's the bottom line. Down here on the surface map, got that coastal front. We were looking for this thing to push in as Imelda came inland earlier last week, and that's what the forecast looked like it was going to be, bringing a lot of rain in here, but that's not going to happen. The coastal front may sneak in a little bit, but it's going to stay largely offshore as these systems pull away. Got another trough in the lee of the Rockies, see some scattered showers and thunderstorms, and another front pulling into the Pacific Northwest, going to cool you off with rain today, and plenty of showers out around Nevada up into western Montana as well. Even some snow in the higher elevations of the Rockies, folks. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. And back into the Cascades, snowflakes will be flying for sure. Here is the air quality map. You can see, actually, that's not the air quality map. That is the drought monitor map. I'm ahead of myself. Drought monitor map shows what? Shows a lot of dry conditions across much of the United States. Not a very pretty map. The only places generally in a widespread basis that are avoiding dry conditions are out here in the plains, where you've seen a lot of thunderstorms. In the northern plains in the Midwest, we've seen rounds of thunderstorms and rain move through the course of the summer. Very dry out west, dry through the Ohio Valley and the Mississippi Valley into the northeast, and getting drier and drier by the day in the southeast. Of course, today, though, and tomorrow we'll make a little bit of progress here, but not all that great. We'll take a look and see what the week ahead has in store here in a second. There's your air quality map up here in northern Washington state, looking at bad air here, south of Portland, looking at bad air there, and down here southwest of Austin over toward Houston, looking at some rough air in those areas too. If you're sensitive, stay inside or just take precautions in those areas. Your flow pattern, folks, this is what we look at from time to time to understand where the jet stream is and where the active weather patterns are going to be and where it's going to be hotter than normal and cooler than normal. Generally, we see these orange colors. The brighter they are, the more above normal you're going to be at the surface, and the deeper the blues, the more below normal you tend to be at the surface. And this is an upper level low here as we start out the frame, and a big ridge here over the center of the country. My, how we've seen those ridges repeat this summer. Well, this wave opens up and dampens out as we go through the course of the day today, and that ridge builds over the north section of the country into south central Canada. There goes Humberto with Imelda hot on its heels. As we go through the next several days, we get on in here into Wednesday, and that ridging just pulls across Canada with another trough working in on Thursday into the Pacific Northwest. Could be unsettled for you all much of the work week, and then ridging for much of the country. That's going to mean what? It's going to mean warmer than normal temperatures with a flow pattern kind of set up to the north. Back this up a little bit, and you can kind of see these tight lines here and a big ridge. That's your general flow pattern. That's where the system sort of moves. So along this jet stream axis here is where we're going to find little waves of energy producing occasional showers and thunderstorms through the course of the upcoming week. That's where the bulk of the rain is going to fall once Imelda moves out of the picture, and energy moving into the Pacific Northwest is going to get shunted in and then eventually up over top of that ridge. If we take a look at rainfall this afternoon, over the course of the next couple of days here in the south is really where the rain's going to fall over the next upcoming week. For the most part, we're looking at rain this afternoon for much of the interior sections of Carolinas. Even along the coast, we're going to see scattered showers, but the bulk of the isentropic upglide is going to take place here in the Piedmont sections and down in towards South Carolina. And you can see that areas of rain. It won't rain all day at every spot, but some areas, especially kind of central portion of North and South Carolina, Virginia, will see more rain than you will out west. It'll be a little bit more scattered out there, and things kind of taper off as we go through the evening hours and things cool off a little bit. We warm back up tomorrow and see more showers in the morning, and then things kind of dissipate as we get on through the course of the day as everything moves away. And that's pretty much all the rain we can expect over the next couple of days, at least for the first half of the week in the eastern part of the country. How about out west? Well, you got that front moving along and coming into the coast, bringing rain from Northern California up into Washington state, and that will increase as the southerly flow interacts with the heating of the day to produce showers and thunderstorms from central Nevada up through Oregon and Idaho into western Montana into Washington state as well. That will move through the evening hours. We get on into tomorrow morning. Still some showers possible into the Four Corners region, the western portions of that into Montana. And then another front comes in to the west, cooling you off and keeping you unsettled as we go on through Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, folks. So the showers just keep on coming in through the course of the week. What about temperatures as we go through the week? Well, remember, let's go back here to Monday. I've already advanced this along, so I'm going to give you a sneak peek about things right now. But remember, you're supposed to be in the 50s for average highs across the north and 60s across the center of the country, down to 70s across the south, and then some 80s across the deep south, folks. We are far, far, far away from that. 70s today for highs from northern Maine all the way down into Georgia with that cool air damming. 90s in Florida across the Gulf Coast where it's hot and humid, humidity and warm temperatures poking back up into the Mississippi Valley, up in the upper 80s now as we get into the northern plains. Cool out west with those troughs working in, even cold, quite cold in the northern peaks of the northern Rockies, folks. Look at that in the Cascades as well. And so the higher peaks are going to be in the 20s and 30s for highs. But look, as we go into tomorrow, things cool off a little bit more in the northeast, 80s all the way up to the Canadian border, down to 90s across the south, and cooling down northern Maine. We've got a little punch of cool air coming in. You're going to get clipped by a trough. And then into Wednesday, it really cools off into New England. That'll feel a lot better, much more like fall. Still wedging across the coast, down into the eastern sections of the Piedmont areas of North and South Carolina, and then warm across the midsection of the country, much like it was the previous couple of days, and still rather cool and unsettled out west. That's your temperature regime for the week. What about precipitation totals? Well, here's what we've got through middle of the week. So this will be Wednesday afternoon. The bulk of this is fallen as a result of tropical moisture from Imelda being pulled in. So we're looking at about a half an inch to an inch in here in the Piedmont sections of the Carolinas, central Virginia, and maybe a half an inch up here from Idaho down into Nevada where you need the rain, and then much more than that along the coast, probably picking up 2-3 inches along the coast and sections of Oregon up into Washington. And then as we go on through the rest of the week, just going to add to those totals up to the north. And we get on in here toward Friday evening. We've seen a little bit more rain out here, a little bit more rain in the Intermountain West and the Northern Rockies. Not much else going on, just some scattered showers around from New Mexico and West Texas up into Minnesota and across the deep south as well in Dixie. Maybe a couple showers up here in northern Maine. But that's the bulk of the rain this week. Not going to make a lot of dent in the drought except for out west, maybe keeping us a little bit wetter, staving it off a bit here in the southeast. But that's what's going on now. We're going to wrap things up with your space weather. We're going to look at what's going on upstairs and under the earth and then knock it out with today's answer to the IQ question. Things have been quiet on the surface of the sun, but things may just be waking up. We are now in geomagnetic storm conditions, and here is the sun right here, and we'll pull it up and you can see a couple of things here. Bright spots indicating sunspots and a black spot indicating a coronal hole that will, as it moves around, it will continue to enhance solar wind and keep us potentially in geomagnetic storm conditions over the coming days, but we've seen some of those sunspots grow in size and complexity, and they've been popping off M-class solar flares. You can see that on the X-ray flux chart down here, the bottom left of your screen. You can see those spikes up into the M range. There's a couple of sunspots, and if I go back to this, it'll show you where they are right here. 4236 and 4232 are coming around, and they are growing. And if you pull the lid back on those, you can see positive charges leading negative charges. They're pretty close together. They start to really intermix. We could have some a higher risk of flaring, and then the one to the southwest is coming around too with a big positive charge there. So we're going to watch those as they move on around. Nothing happening earthquake wise, tiny little quake here. It looks like Central California, magnitude 2. Probably didn't feel that. Nothing else going on the volcano front, but the moon is almost halfway. So we're looking at a first quarter 45.5% growing, at least in terms of its brightness, to a full moon on October 6th. Will be a harvest moon, and we will be watching for that. And that is the show for today, folks. Hope you've enjoyed it and learned a few things and had a good time along the way. I've enjoyed being here with you and really appreciate you tuning in. Thank you so much for all the support and the growth of this channel. We've grown rapidly over the course of the summer. We're over 6,000 subscribers now. Next stop is 7. Hopefully we'll get to 10 by the end of the year. That is my goal. So the answer to today's question, what is the speed at which the average raindrop falls? 14, 10, 26 miles per hour, or warp 2? If you're standing out in a hurricane, it feels like warp 2, but the average drop falls at about 14 miles per hour. Now you know the weather. One more thing that's kind of interesting here I thought that I would share with you is that also on September the 29th, 1954, Willie Mays, in Game 1 of the World Series, made the famous catch over the shoulder of the 1954 World Series. The iconic play occurred in the top of the 8th inning at Polo Grounds. With the score tied 2-2, Mays of the New York Giants made a running over-the-shoulder grab of a deep fly ball hit by Vic Wentz of the heavily favored Cleveland Indians, preventing runners from scoring. Take a look.
There's a long drive, way back in center field, way back, it is.
Amazing. Still one of the most famous catches in baseball to this date. The New York Giants would win the game in extra innings by a final of 5-2. They would go on to sweep the series and become the national champions. And now you know about baseball, folks, and that is it for today. Hope you have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll see you back again tomorrow with a brand new episode of Cold Rain's Weather World. In the meantime, this is Cold Rain reminding you the weather runs 24/7, but I got you covered right here, right now, 4814. Take care. Have a great day, everybody.